Hi. So, I think I need to explain real quick what exactly this is. When we got that look at Rogers the Musical in the first episode of Hawkeye, a certain someone posted this.
Challenge accepted.
I then proceeded to take up this certain someone on his challenge and write this fake review for Rogers that you are about to see. I even wrote bits of it on my phone, which I never do, but I was so invested in this, every thought had to be jotted down immediately. It is kind of crazy how far this went. Wait in the Wings later released this fake documentary on the development of Rogers, that I may or may not have helped a bit with. Even Cinemageddon Reviews got in on the action and did a fake video review on Rogers. Those videos are both awesome and you should go watch them. Links will be provided. But I was starting to feel a little left out with this written review sitting in my drafts, so I decided that once we got to Hawkeye on MCU TV, converting the text review of that hypothetical Captain America musical into a proper video. Originally, I was gonna put this anecdote at the end of the video, but then Disney had to go and make an actual Rogers the Musical at Disney's California Adventure, which yes, I've watched, and yes, is a ton of fun. So this is a little disclaimer to explain what this is. This is not a review of the California Adventure production. This is me making a bunch of stuff up about a musical that will sadly never really exist, and writing a review as if I was in that audience with Clint and his family. So now, I present to you the very real, but totally not, review of superhero smash hit Rogers, the Musical.
I could do this all day.
The Avengers have been controversial figures since their debut over a decade ago. There's no denying that. However, ever since they restored everyone who had vanished in the blip, the admiration towards Earth's mightiest heroes has only grown. For many, this has taken the form of tributes, telling the amazing stories of the heroes who are no longer with us. With the likes of the recently announced biopic Stark, slated for 2025, and rumored to star Tom Cruise, and the biggest musical sensation to hit Broadway this season, Rogers, based on the life of Steve Rogers, the first Captain America. It's easy to dismiss the idea as soon as it's pitched to you. After all, bringing larger-than-life figures like superheroes to an intimate setting like a Broadway stage sounds like a recipe for disaster. However, in this critic's humble opinion, Rogers avoids these hurdles by not just being the story of the legendary Captain America, but about the life of Steve Rogers. You'd think the story of a man who was a result of a government experiment in a desperate part of our history, who was then frozen in ice only to wake up decades later to fight aliens, would be a difficult one to tell on stage. Luckily, that's not truly the focus of this musical. Rogers, at its core, is the story of a young man from Brooklyn trying to help, standing for what he believes in against overwhelming odds. A story that is, in all honesty, a very familiar one in the world of musical theater. In order for the heart of the story to work, however, it needed to be cast just right. As recent events have taught us, put the wrong man behind the shield and it could lead to disaster. Luckily, Tom Feeney rises to the challenge much like the Sentinel of Liberty he portrays did, carrying the show with the utmost sincerity, even when having to reenact some of the most ridiculous moments in recent history. Which is good, because keeping that sincerity intact was the only way such a fantastical story was going to work on the stage. Anything else, and the audience would have felt the disingenuousness right away, and thus had been pulled out of the experience, ready to scoff at the spectacle as it unfolded. In regard to the show's more spectacular moments, though, there's no need to worry about rubber muscle suits or corny roadshow combat here. Rogers made the wise decision to make the story of Captain America feel more down to earth, embracing the limitations of theater sets and costumes, and making stylistic choices to represent these places and people, getting across the ideas of heroes like Hulk and Iron Man without constricting the actors in bulky costumes. Don't get me wrong though, this show does get too flashy from time to time, and it can make it feel like a campy theme park attraction. A good example is the sequence recounting the Battle of Sokovia. The chrome on the Ensemble Ultron costumes can be blinding. If the show has not won you over by this point, it will only make the experience more of a headache. On the other hand, the tale can get you so invested with its twists and turns that it's easy to get swept away in the more self-indulgent moments. Which is, in part, thanks to the music. A story like Captain America's is large, large, elaborate, and way too dense to tell in a little over 2 hours. This is a generation-spanning story, remember. Thankfully, the score helps with that tremendously, able to recount major world events satisfyingly in a 5-minute song and dance number, or years of love and devotion in a single ballad. I'm sorry, if You Owe Me a Dance doesn't make you tear up, you might want to get an x-ray and check that your heart is still there. Not every song is a home run, and the lyrics can be a bit pedestrian at times, but if you're willing to just sit back and enjoy the ride, Mark Shaman and Scott Whitman's work will yet again deliver memorable tunes that will tell a lively yet emotional story. With highlights including the comedic romp of On Your Left, that has a surprisingly triumphant reprise late in the second act, the heartbreaking Frozen Moving Forward, the gut punch that is End of the Line, this great number Nick Fury has recounting the last 70 years of history that I can't even remember what it was called, but I loved it, and the Act 1 closer, Save the City. The energy of that show-stopping number will make you feel like you're right in the middle of the action, in a fun way, not in the almost crushed by Hulk debris way like I was. Man, I've had to move so much because of that guy. The score even includes a blast from the past with a rendition of Star Spangled Man with a Plan, a very fun callback to those familiar with how Rogers made his debut as Captain America. I can imagine that for some, it'll be very exciting to see a version of that song live on stage, much like back in the days of selling war bonds. Not sure if the Springtime for Hydra number was in bad taste though. At the very least, it's short, and at the end, Cap punches every Hydra member in sight. That felt pretty good to watch. Much like the heroes that inspired this, Rogers the Musical is not perfect. With how quiet Steve Rogers in particular was about his personal life, there's only so much we know about what happened to him, particularly between him and the Avengers. So trying to stitch together what we know about the lives of these heroes into a satisfying narrative can feel disjointed at times. It was inevitable. For example, while I don't claim to be an expert on this, I don't recall Ant-Man being associated with the Avengers until fairly recently. I don't know, maybe it's explained in that new book of his. Despite its imperfections, this is definitely a production that will connect with an audience. Rogers the Musical is both a fluffy spectacle, perfect for the tourist to have a good time, and an honest look at this hero who represented so much and reminds those sitting there watching that he was just a person trying his best. That's probably why they decided to name the show Rogers and not Captain America the Musical. It's a tale that spans decades and some of the greatest challenges of our time, a tale of triumph and adversity, of love and loss, making the inevitable conclusion of the musical all the more impactful. I'm tempted to spoil how they portray what might seem like an obvious ending, but no. I don't think I will. Rogers the Musical is indeed sensational. It brings the thunder. It's smashing. It hits the bullseye. If you have kids or loved ones who look up to the Avengers and want to be just like them, this is the kind of story that tells them they can be. After all we've been through in the last few years, Rogers is the inspiring tale of perseverance in the face of overwhelming odds we really need to tell. Staying true to yourself in the most difficult of situations. Turns out you can bring superheroes the Great White Way without an alien invasion, and it is an event you do not want to miss. Thanks for watching, everyone. I know this video was a bit different, but I hope you had as much fun watching it as I did writing it. Special thanks to Brendan from Wait in the Wings for prompting this challenge in the first place, and to Sebastian from Cinemageddon Reviews, because we bounced a lot of ideas off each other that weekend we were both writing these, and it was ridiculous. It was a blast. If you're somehow watching this video and have not checked out my video on Hawkeye, you can do so now. Both videos went live at about the same time. And even in fake reviews, I always have to give a very special thanks to my patrons who help support my content, including Chelsea Crandall, David L. Sproul, Hawk Hero, Jinx Productions, and again, Wait in the Wings. If you'd like to join these fine people in supporting my content while getting cool exclusive perks, you can check out my Patreon page at the link in the description. Thank you so much again for watching, and I will see you guys next time.